Hi, friends. Thanks so much for joining us today. I am so blessed to have a friend, Lesa Johnson, with us. And I've known her for quite a few years, probably going on 10 years now. And I met her when she came to my page. And Lesa has walked the grief journey as a widow, and she has comforted others with the same comfort that she's received by being a GriefShare facilitator. And so she knows a lot about the topic of grief. And so I've asked her to join us, and she'll answer some of the questions that you've all have posted to me. And I'm going to let Lesa introduce herself and share a little bit of her story now. Hi, Lesa.
Hi, Debbie. It's so good to see you and everyone
Yeah.
else who may be watching today. Welcome to this time. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share. Like Debbie said, I was very suddenly widowed when my husband came home from work and literally died on our bedroom floor. That was January of 2012. And while I hadn't been exempt from loss and grief before that, that really was a tsunami of grief. To suddenly lose a spouse of 25 years was a big life event, to use the least. So my sons at the time were 17 and 19, and we worked through that with faith, family, and friends, and help from places. The Lord just sent Debbie and her page to me via Facebook, via a really wonderful friend. About a week after Dean passed, actually, Debbie, is when my friend Sherry said, "You should like this page." And I have been following you and drinking from your love and written word ever since. So
Wow.
thank you.
Thank you. Praise the Lord. He uses everything we go through, doesn't he, Lesa?
Yes, God wastes nothing.
That's for sure. Um, I know, when did you start leading GriefShare? Was that after? You weren't doing that before, right?
No, and my church didn't have one. So that fall, the same year he passed, one of my pastors, who was also a widow, she said, "Hey, Lesa, we should lead GriefShare." So the first time I took it, I led it, and I've led it now, I think 17 times in
Wow.
that time period. And every time is different. The grief road is it's a lifelong journey. I think God teaches us a lot through grief, and I've never really tired of leading that. So
Wow, that's
yeah.
great. And you just had some exciting, an exciting life change too, which I think is a wonderful thing to share because it shows that God does
Mm.
heal and bring us through things. Do you want to share your big news?
Well, Debbie, I'm excited to share that during COVID, I led a Zoom class on surviving the holidays, GriefShare, and a wonderful widower signed up for my class. And he is, as of 3 weeks ago, my husband.
That's so cool.
So we met, we met in a grief class as he was grieving the loss of his wife. And praise God, behold, I make all things new. I'm living that verse out.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Thank
Well, I
you.
know that you have a wealth of knowledge to share. And I guess the first thing I'd like to ask, since we're going through the holidays and a lot of people,
Mm.
I put out a notice on my page and asked people what questions they had and what they needed
Yeah.
help with. And there's a lot of people that are just dreading the holidays, and it's the first
Mhm.
holiday, major holiday without their loved ones. And so I wonder what advice you would give
Mm.
to people to get through that.
Such a big thing. It's um, the holidays bring back so many memories. So my advice is, first of all, keep it simple. Give yourself grace on not doing what you did in the past, as far as decorating, going, cooking, baking. Your life has changed, and if your world has been turned on its side, I think that rest is a really big thing. So my experience has been to uh, spend some time right now just really simplifying holidays and explaining to the people, if you have family nearby or people who are expecting you to create these traditions, to let them know. First of all, you can use Facebook, social media, send an email, write a grief letter to your friends and family, and just say, hey, I'm grieving. It's going to be a little different this time. But one thing that I loved doing, and it helped us a lot in our family, was we created a little space in our house where we had some pictures of our loved one, and I would light a candle in that spot. And I would just say, that's just kind of our quiet spot. If we need to go over there and sit, we could do that. And especially on the day, on Christmas Day, on Thanksgiving, because sometimes, Debbie, well-meaning family members that do get together, they're so afraid to bring up the name of the person who's gone on ahead. They don't even mention that. And
Yeah.
so what I like to do is just from the very beginning, when company comes over, um, I lost a nephew about 5 years ago, 18-year-old, unexpected, tragic accident. But what we did was we chose a place in the kitchen right near the buffet where we put a picture of him and a candle. And we just said, we feel the memory of him here, and we're going to tell his stories today. And so it opened the door to allow for healthy conversation. And so for my family, the ability to acknowledge that there would be a space. And I just think that a candle for me, a lot of people are drawn to light and warmth and illumination, the symbolism of the candle, of our hope in Jesus. Um, then I would say that's just one thing off the top of my head. There's so many tools that we can use to simplify getting through the holidays. The other thing is really taking them one day at a time, just being gentle with yourself, with the expectations, um, and take some time to just be, you know, remember to drink your water and get good sleep, and get through it one day at a time.
Right. And um, I think it's important for people to know too that not everybody, people do not grieve the same. And even if you had two women that lost their husbands,
Mhm.
their relationships could be different. So their grief could be different as well.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
I think it's important, one, that we don't compare each other or ourselves with anybody else, that you don't know the factors. And it could be too, don't you think, that maybe we don't know, some people might say, well, that's a little thing, why did they fall apart, but they don't know that there was all
Mhm.
these losses beforehand that perhaps they'd never dealt with, and that
Right.
this is like the straw that broke the camel's back,
Mhm.
and it's
Mm.
just a little harder to get back up from. Have you found that in your experience?
Oh, that's such good wisdom, Debbie. It's so true, because they say that when you grieve, you actually, a new loss can trigger all the old losses
Yeah.
coming back, because sometimes we just had to cope and we shoved that grief in the closet because we had to go to work and take care of our families, and or we just couldn't handle it. And so a new loss brings back those bigger losses. And so practicing compassion and knowing that you're right, no two losses are the same. The beauty is God created us so uniquely. We love uniquely, and then we grieve uniquely. And so even my sons, for example, grieved very differently. They're 2 years apart. Their style, mannerisms, personalities just made them very different on how they expressed themselves or didn't. And that's okay. The grief road, a good friend told me, Lisa, the widow road, at least for me, is a road no one can journey for you. You must travel that road, but you can have many fans in the stands. You can have friends on the wayside. You can have family at a rest stop. And most of all, you can have the word, God's word, to comfort you and be a compass, a light unto our feet and our path from that in that time. And that's where a lot of people honestly don't get it. People will say the most outrageous things. I mean, bless their hearts. you know, they think they know, they want to help. I really think most people are well intentioned in the things they say. But you and I both know people will say the darndest things.
Yeah.
And so, we also have to practice giving some grace and taking a deep breath. And my best phrase has been, that may be. Someone will say something to me, so I neither condemn it, reject it, or accept it. I just say, that may be.
That's a good way to handle it. Did you ever find, or do you ever recommend to people that sometimes they might need to take a break from people that maybe,
Oh, God.
especially people that just don't get it and they're trying to fix them?
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, so true. I was told early on by my pastor, Lisa, stand with the strong. And what he meant by that was, if you have a few close friends or family who do get it, spread your grief around amongst those people and know that taking a break from the rest is really healthy. And so if you need to be alone, I mean, there were days I literally said, I'm taking a 48-hour timeout. And that's completely fine. I said, I don't want any company, no phones, no visitors. I really need to just be, de-stress and unwind.
Mhm.
And that's really helpful. I had a life coach who tragically lost a very close family member, and he shared with me the first holiday, they just opted out of the holidays and they went on a cruise. Now, people may not be cruising right now, but figuratively speaking, what they did was they just took a week off and they went and relaxed and they just opted out of celebrating that holiday.
Mhm.
And that's okay too.
Right.
You could just take a long car ride for a week or so.
Yeah. I noticed some people said, I really don't feel like celebrating, but I've got younger children or grandchildren,
Mm.
and so they're doing it for them. But so what would you say in that sort of situation? What would you recommend?
Mm. Oh gosh, that's a good one. With the younger children, it is important that we do something for them because they are also grieving or not in their own way. As children grieve differently, I think the way I've been explained is that children will grieve in little chunks and then they just say, we got to go play. So it's important that we have some play for them. One thing that I did really early in my loss is I told people my room's off limits. That's my space. I might decorate the downstairs, but if I go in my room, shut the door, you all don't come in there. That's where I could go vent the volcano, is what I called it. I
Mm,
had to go have a good cry, because we create new Christmas memories. Let's say Christmas, for example. We create these new Christmas memories that are really beautiful. And then the first thing that would hit me is I would say, oh my gosh, he would have loved this.
yeah.
And it would make me, instead of bringing me joy, it would make me so sad. And I would need to go upstairs and hop in the shower and have a good cry. I cried in the shower as a mom. That was very efficient. And I could get away with it. Nobody would say, are you okay, mama? I could just do it in there. But I think you would need to do something for the children. But I also learned in later years that it was okay to say, let's look back on some family video or some pictures from Christmases before. Give the children a chance to talk about, I miss daddy, or I miss mommy, or I miss grandma. It's good health to talk about our loved ones and check in with how others in our circle are doing,
Right,
because they may not know how to bring up their own grief.
right. What did you do to help your boys? Did you do anything, or did you just kind of give
Mm,
them space to just process the way they
mm,
needed to process? Or
Gosh, you know, I kind of have the shoulda, coulda, wouldas on that.
Mm,
At the time, I just really felt like I needed to show them the example that I was pushing forward in life. I was fortunate enough to have a good job. I was able to still work and modify my work schedule. I really wanted, for me, I was able to set the example to say, we are going to honor him, and we're going to push forward, not move on. I don't like that word. Life is pushing forward,
Right.
and the one day at a time. So I really felt like if I could set the example, they would follow me and, continue going to college. My youngest needed to graduate high school that year. We were able to, but, you know, um, asking for help was probably the biggest thing, the example that I set for them, which was, people want to help, but they don't know how to. So they'll say things on social media. Should you ever need my assistance, please don't hesitate to ask. Bless their hearts. We need to say, yes, I need my lawn mowed on Tuesday. Could you possibly come mow my lawn? Or my truck needs new wiper blades. I don't know how to put them on. Could someone help me with that? Or my son needs to know how to tie a tie. Senior ball is next week. Who can help my son tie a tie? If we have specific things to ask, and our children see us get over our prideful. So I was pretty prideful, Debbie. I mean, it was rough. There's things I didn't know how to kill a mouse, for goodness sake. I put it on Facebook, but I had 100 people offer to help me kill the mouse.
Yeah.
So,
There's,
but
I get
asking,
that. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, but I think back to, other losses, like when I lost my grandmother or when I lost my mother-in-law. Those have all been subsequent losses in the time period. And losses are part of life. They're going to keep coming. We have the big tsunamis, and then we have the little tsunamis. We have the unexpecteds, the traumatic tragedies, and then we have the long lives. And guess what? We miss all those people. We miss them all because we loved. And grief is really the price of love.
Yeah. And I think too, it's important to note that the more we love, the deeper that love is, the more we're going to feel that loss.
Yes.
And
yes.
Doesn't mean, I think it's important, and the fact that you just got remarried shows just how completely, the pain never goes away. You'll always think of Dean. He'll always hold that special place in your heart. There's no changing that. You guys had a wonderful, deep relationship, but I see so many people that just think they'll never heal, and they can never move forward from their pain. And that, to me, I think we have to claim God's promises, that he promises to bind our wounds. And that doesn't mean that it's just for some people and not others. That's all for everybody. But we have to be willing to take those steps and do the things that are necessary to help us move forward from the pain. And there will always be, when you say, there's always things that even now, all these years later, there's things that will bring back something, or feel like something is just slammed against you that you weren't, you go, where did that come from? Do you feel that happens to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my grief cohabitates with my joy. That's what I say.
Yeah.
And there's room for both. So many times we say, well, I can't make room for another person in my life. But we do when people have babies. We're grieving the loss of family, right? But people around us have children, and we learn that love is exponential and it grows. I think for me, it did take me a while. It took me actually 9 years before I even considered dating. But I knew that my life wasn't over. And in the interim, the Lord gave me a posse of girlfriends, a lot of widow sisters. I call them wisters, through different organizations and church that have become very special people to me. But falling in love again is that just to me, I'm so blessed to have found that. Not everyone gets that opportunity.
Right.
I'm aware of that. I do know, though, early on, I didn't I wasn't healed enough for that. And I think it's important that people wait a little while, or
Yes.
at least until they feel healed.
Yes.
Many people have a long goodbye with illnesses and long-term things, and they're more ready because my late husband was not sick. He had a blood clot, asymptomatic, and so he literally came home and died. And so we had no warning, no goodbye. That was different, and that's just like, complicated grief, or when people have losses unexpectedly. For me, it just took a while.
Mm.
But oh gosh, Debbie, we never forget those that we've lost. But I think it's just so important to say we cannot live our life looking in the rearview mirror. We will miss what's in front of us.
Right.
And it's not what we had planned. This is a big thing. When we reconcile, this is not what I had planned, Lord, but it can still taste good.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, we may be taken by surprise by things, but God's not surprised.
Mm,
And he promises he has a hope-filled future for us. He knows the plans he has for us. And that includes all these things that hit us like tsunamis. Don't you agree?
mm. It's just so true. I, when thinking of Christmas, and one of the things in GriefShare they talk about is that Christmas is really the sufferer's holiday. If you think about it, the Lord knew in advance how much the hurting world would need a savior,
Yes.
someone to save them. And when baby Jesus came in the manger, it really, as I think Dr. Paul Tripp said it in the videos, it puts death in a casket and it rolls it away.
Mm.
Because death and loss, when we grieve because of death, we think it's because we're never going to see those people again. And if they knew Jesus and they were believers, we will see them again because of the hope of the world that is in Jesus. And so, another thing about, how do we make this work is shifting our paradigm of Christmas and the holidays from one of earthly parties and gatherings to one of a heavenly promise.
Yes.
If we focus, and some people, you've heard these stories, Debbie, there are many people that are very much alone physically. They don't have
Yes.
family left. They're
Yes.
very isolated. And for them, I would say we really have to fixate on Jesus as the light of the world, the hope of the world, and that his promise to care for us on this side of heaven is sovereign. That is not going to go away. That is the promise. I just think about this picture in my mind that here comes baby Jesus, our Savior, pushing death away, rolling it away. And that's what I would fixate on. If grief is overwhelming during these holidays, the light of the world, the hope of the world, that's how the story really ends.
Yes.
Heaven.
Yeah. You mentioned several times one day at a time. And I want to touch on this because I know in my darkest days,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it wasn't even a day at a time. It felt like it was a minute at a time or an hour at a time. And I want people to know that that's normal. That many people feel that way at first. And I'm sure that you probably did this as well. But what I did was I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I couldn't feel God's presence for the first time in my life. So what I had to do was just do what I knew I was supposed to do, read the word and pray and just keep doing one obedient act after another, and just know that even if I couldn't feel him, he promised he was near. And if I couldn't see the light at the tunnel, I knew he is the light and he promises to never leave or forsake me. And so you just get through it 1 minute or 1 hour at a time. And then pretty soon you'll find hey, I'm feeling a little better today. Maybe it's only for an hour or two, but those hours grow and until you find that you're doing better over longer periods of time. Do you find that
Mm,
to be true for yourself and
yeah,
others?
I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, Debbie, there were times when, you just can't even catch your breath. Maybe you're crying so hard, and you don't know how you're going to go on. And I know for me, journaling was really important. Writing, I use my phone because it's easy to send an email to myself. Spending time outside in nature was important to me. um, and then someone shared with me the analogy, as a mama, I've been blessed to be able to be a mother. And I remember, when you labor and deliver a baby, there's pain with a purpose. And sometimes the breathing, the Lamaze or Bradley, whatever method people use nowadays, I don't know, but it was systematic. And I thought as I was laboring literally through my grief, because that's the only other thing in my life that hurt as much as loss was having natural childbirth. And I'm thinking about it, the purpose is a new life. The purpose is, what is God doing in me? I'm being refined in the fire. And I don't know, Lord, how I can do this without you, to just one moment at a time, one breath at a time. And that reminds me of another important thing, especially people that have little children, spouses, family members. Not a lot of people are caring for their parents or just other adults that are dependent on them. Is when you're on a plane and the air pressure changes and the oxygen mask drops, the plane they tell you to put the mask on yourself first before you put it on the person next to you. If you don't do that, Debbie, we won't be good for anyone.
Right.
And that's why, if we are caring for others, it's important that we define, what is that oxygen mask then for us? Is it sleep? Is it vitamins, nutrition, exercise, prayer life? I call it chair time. The chair time is, time in the word, journaling, devotional, maybe listening to some inspirational, encouraging music.
Yeah.
If you get to the point where you can't pray, it's okay. I think saying, "Oh, God," is a prayer. He's there, we know, but we may not be able to utter another word.
Right. And that's what
We
the
could,
Holy Spirit's there for too. He interprets the groanings of our heart. But
yeah.
in the beginning, a lot of people, I want to assure them, a lot of people don't. Grief affects us physically, emotionally, mentally. And so, especially in the beginning, we're kind of numb. Our attention span is shortened. It's hard to focus. And so you might have trouble doing your devotions like you normally would, or being able to
Mhm.
really grasp. So just put scriptures up around your house or in your car or wherever you
Yeah.
can see them, just to help reinforce that God's there,
Mhm.
and what he says, that
Mhm.
it's his strength. We'll get through things, and don't feel bad if you can't sit and do what you usually do as far as devotions
Mhm.
go, but putting, like Lesa said,
Mhm.
putting on music or worship music or whatever. Worship puts us into God's presence, and that
Mhm.
helps us immensely. Do
Mhm.
you have anything to
Yes.
add to that, Lesa?
Well, the only thing is, I think that's real important, is that many people who are grieving, Debbie, can't sleep. And
Yes.
if they can't sleep, sleep is a huge thing. And I would say, practice good sleep behavior, before you go to bed, read up on it, talk to your doctor. What
Yes.
can I do to help myself sleep in a healthy way? And never underestimate the power of a good warm bath, and restful music, and turning off devices that hour before bedtime.
Mhm.
And just, giving yourself time and space to sleep and fall asleep is really important.
Yes.
And I, my doctor helped me, my counselor helped me, but ultimately I just had to make good sleep a goal.
Yes. It's a priority because, I mean, lack of
Mhm.
sleep no matter whether we're grieving or not, it takes a toll on us. It affects us. We don't have the cognitive abilities that we need when we don't sleep, and it's like a vicious circle, because our body, mind, and spirit are all connected. So if one part of that puzzle is not where it needs to be, it's going to impact everything else. So you're very right. It's so important. And just pray, if you're having trouble sleeping, pray and seek out, do everything you can to help yourself to try to sleep. Make that a priority. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. God created us to sleep, and he knew that we would have these times where it would be hard, but pray maybe to get the resources you need, or that he'll lead you to what can help you, because everybody's different. Just like everybody grieves differently, what works for one person doesn't work for another. So but don't give up. Keep trying. Don't say, well, I tried one thing and it didn't work, so that's it. But we keep going and trying to help ourselves.
And Debbie, I will tell you, one of the things that I fell asleep to a lot was when your audio versions of your prayers came out. I had never seen your face except on the back of your web page, but I fell asleep many a night listening to the gentle voice of Debbie K reading her night prayers. I mean, just your if you can pray, I think I've learned to pray a lot from you. Your ability to just talk to God like a normal person, right? I didn't know that because I grew up maybe in a more formal church setting. One of the things loss has taught me is to be able to just talk to God like this.
Well, I'm blessed to hear that. I've had a lot of people tell me that they've listened to those, or when a parent or spouse was dying, they would put them on. And I even had that for my grandmother when she was dying. My aunt told me my grandma would listen to that. And so I had no idea, but I'm very grateful that God's used that. And thank you for sharing that. Sorry, I'm a little tender today.
Well,
Yesterday was a hard day. Yeah. And I'm right there with everybody else. I'm grieving the loss of my brother, and my dad is dying. And so I don't speak these things from a place of, oh, I've overcome and everything's all great. I'm still going through it right along with everybody else. And we're going to keep going through it as long as we're on this planet. And unfortunately, the older we get, the more losses we seem to have. And so we just have to encourage each other and pray for each other. That's so important. Just, when you were talking about things people can do for us, I know I hear people say, I'm overwhelmed. I can't think. I don't know what people can do for me. But one thing that we should do for others without them even having to ask is pray for them consistently, because they face challenges that they just need that support, and it makes a difference. It truly does.
Yes. And one thing I learned was that even while I was grieving and needing prayer, I was able to pray for others.
Yes.
And that just lifted my spirit as I prayed for all of the people in the circle, inner circle and outer circle, that were grieving my same losses from their unique perspectives. I would pray that God would just fill their hearts with the peace that passes all understanding. I found that in praying for others and serving others, really honestly, God brought me some relief and some peace that I wasn't expecting from that.
Yeah.
Isn't that great that in praying for others and serving others, like I said, my joy cohabitates with my grief.
Yes.
That God is growing me. We are groaning through these growing pains. So we can reach out even when we need to be held.
Yes. Something you just talked on, that joy and grief cohabitate. I think some people feel guilty, like when say there's a gathering and like, how can I be laughing? How can I be enjoying this
Mhm.
when my loved one's not here? Oh, do you want to
Mhm.
speak to that?
Sure. I think that's so common that we feel guilty that we're here and they're not. And we feel guilty that we are having a good time because we're sad. But the Lord does heal. I think that when we read in Ecclesiastes, when we talk about there is a time for all things, I take comfort in that, knowing that God never intended for us to spend all of our time in the grief bed. We need to also have the time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to laugh and a time to, that whole verse. And I'm just paraphrasing because the point of that is that there is a season for all things. And it's okay that we laugh. Laughter is good medicine.
Yeah.
If children, I think, demonstrate it most perfectly and innocently, they can have a tragic loss and go watch cartoons and laugh their head off. Laughing releases tension. And I'm sure there's all kinds of medical terms for it. And I'm not a medical professional, but I know it's good for us. And we should feel like that's okay. God loves us. And you know what? My kids told me one day, Debbie, I'd gone to the cemetery. I think it was his birthday, which was about 6 weeks after he passed. And I had bawled my head off so badly there, I didn't think I could drive home. And I called my kids, and they're again 17 and 19-year-old boys, bless their hearts. And my oldest son said to me, Mom, he wouldn't want you to be this way. And I took it almost as an epiphany. I was like, you know what? You're right. I sat up a little straighter and I caught my breath. And after about 5 minutes, I said, you guys, I'm coming home. I'll be home soon. And I made the drive home. And I know our loved ones, they wouldn't want us to suffer, especially with the knowledge of heaven, that there is no more suffering or sorrow, pain, physical affliction. There's none of that in heaven. I took that as a pass to say, you know what, I can go home and watch an old comedy or get into the Hallmark Channel or some
Mm,
other form of distraction,
yeah.
and not feel guilty about it, because nobody can live under that much pressure all the time. That is not healthy.
No.
And there was a tipping point at one point in my life where I realized I didn't cry today. I didn't cry this week. And that's okay. That's the progress we should be making.
Yeah.
And then though, like even yesterday, yesterday was a family holiday and I have so many great new things, but there was a point that I looked at one of my family members and my eyes kind of filled with tears thinking that same thought, oh, they would have loved this. They would be proud of me right now. That was a thought I had. Emotions are good. Emotions are part of everybody's life, but I just have to remind myself my emotions don't have a brain. They may run off with me sometimes. And I have to say, whoa, Lisa, wheel it in a little bit, come and get centered and take a deep breath, take a shower, and push forward.
Yeah. That's a good point. Uh, Going back to the laughter thing a minute, laughter releases endorphins, which make us feel better. And I
Mhm.
know when my son and I, after his father left, it was really, really dark days for us. And so I would
Mm.
make a point, even just if it was for the span of an hour, we would watch a comedy. And we tried to incorporate that into our routines. Because even if you're only getting relief for an hour, that's
Mhm.
still releasing a lot of feel good hormones into your body that help you better cope and keep pressing forward. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a very healthy thing to stop and say, we're gonna plan on this, because it's not going to happen spontaneously,
Mhm.
probably, especially if you're isolated or alone or whatever. So just take time out, whatever brings you joy and whatever can give you a little relief. Did you ever, you said you journal. Do you have a gratitude journal or a joy journal?
Yeah, I've done that. Love it. So especially this time of the year, I think that's really, really popular. I have followed a couple of joy bloggers
Mm,
and done joy Bible journaling where you can color in, the Bible. I'm not a great artist, so I bought a Bible that has a little template
mhm.
from Tyndale, and I would color and then do my daily gratitude thing. But one of the tools I did really early on, I just remembered this, was when I would feel overwhelmed by low thoughts, I would make a list of 10. I got a piece of paper and I would write 10 things I was grateful for. I did this any time of the year. This is not a November thing. But
Right.
I found that even if it was, God, I'm thankful for bath salts, I'm thankful for cotton sheets, I'm thankful I have enough gas in my car to get to work tomorrow. It might be just, there's still this much milk left, praise God, provision, thankful for whatever provision, making a list of 10, I think, just on a post-it note was an exercise I did early on that helped a lot when I was feeling myself sink to, low levels. And when you go down that road of low sorrow and depression, we know we got to come back up it. So if we can recognize the signs of saying, "Oh, girl, you're really getting in a deep hole, and today you have to go to work and you have to pay your bills and you have to pick up the kids at 4." So I would stop and intentionally make a list of 10, and then those other things are going to still be there, but it helped me turn my car around mentally, emotionally,
Yeah,
and kind of go back to where I had to be functional.
right.
Yeah,
It's intentional. That word is so important. I think when we're grieving, we have to, at first we're hemorrhaging and
right.
you can't do a lot right in the immediate aftermath,
No.
but as you move forward a little bit, we have to be intentional with the things that we do to help ourselves. And God
Yes.
steps in and he does so much for us, but we have to take actionable steps as well. And
Yeah.
so, like you talked about writing things down, that's another thing that helps with sleep. If there's just a lot of things that are on your mind before you go to bed, sit and write them down. So
Make a
they're not running
list.
around in your head,
Hmm.
and then you just set it aside. But um, for anyone that doesn't know, to like Lisa touched on gratitude and writing things you're grateful for, but also write down answers to prayers and things that God has done for you. And when you're having a really low day, if you go back and look and say, yeah, God did this and this and this,
Hmm.
and he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So if he did take care of me before, he's going to take care of me now. And it's just a
Hmm.
way of encouraging yourself that even though you may not feel that he's
Hmm.
there, or you may not feel anything good, sometimes
Hmm.
we have to, like you said, don't, our feelings aren't necessarily true. We have to weigh what we feel against what God says. So,
That's good. I like that.
yeah. So what
I'm
else?
taking notes, writing that.
I'm some of these things are making me realize I'll be putting up, I'm going to make some separate videos and notes for people so that they can like remember about a joy journal or a gratitude journal. Um, and I'll put up, I've
Mhm.
got some things about what not to say and what to say to people who are grieving and things like that. And what else do you, when you do your grief for the holiday classes, what else do you share with people?
Wow. Have a plan. I mean, some families have a lot of activities and they do a lot. I mean, I met a woman who said, I usually put up 14 Christmas trees. How am
Wow.
I going to do that? And I said, maybe put up one, just one. So simplifying a plan, and then always having maybe an out on social things. If people are obligated to go to a lot of social things for the holidays because I'm a business person, so I had to go to a lot of things. I would just always say, maybe arrive a little late and leave a little early. The other thing would be if you're not being invited anywhere, then make it a point to go to see maybe one church service, go to a Christmas Eve service, or someplace, if you feel the need to get out and you're not being invited, because there's two ends of all of that.
Yeah.
Having a plan. I do think less is more when you're grieving. So doing less things really means more, because we're tired. And then explaining that to family, just saying ahead of time, we're doing the best that we can right now with what we have, and we're doing it one day at a time, just expressing that, sharing that with family. I used Facebook as my ability to communicate with my friends and family how I was doing. Not everybody uses that. It might just be a little family meeting in the household. But the other thing is that we really can start new traditions. Just because we've done something in the past doesn't mean we have to do it now. It's okay. If you always got a live tree, you can get a fake tree. If you want a Charlie Brown tree, do that. If you just want to decorate a cross on your wall, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Yep. If you want to eat tacos on Christmas Day instead of turkey, you have the freedom in all those things to change things up, because Christ is still born on Christmas Day. No matter what we eat, do, wear, go, sing, it's still the day we celebrate the birth of the Savior.
Right. I think it helps to, like, we just put our focus on that and just remember that we may not feel like we have anything to celebrate, but as a Christian, we do. We have the birth of Jesus,
Yes.
and the hope that he gives us. And so just make it about that. If that's all you can do, just worship
Yes.
him and thank him. And that's, I think we have to let go of our, if people don't understand, we have to say, okay, you may not understand, but this is what I have to do for me. And we kind of have to set boundaries along with all this stuff, don't you think?
Yes.
And it's okay to do that. And if someone doesn't understand your decisions, we have to say it to ourselves, that's their problem and not mine. I'm not responsible for them understanding. I just have to make the best decisions I can for myself and my family during this time.
Right. Yes. That's a really good point, because a lot of times there's family members or close friends that are well-intentioned, and they can be very outspoken about what they think. And that's where I say that may be, remember to spread your grief around to healthy people. The other people, healthy boundaries are good. And I just say, you sometimes have to do your own thing. And, I've traveled in my life, but I know the first time that I went to Hawaii and I experienced that and I came home, if I tried to describe it to someone, they're not going to feel what I felt when I walked out in the ocean until they experienced it.
Right.
And the same is true for grief. They may think they know. In my mind, I'll just say, they haven't traveled there yet.
Yeah.
And I just let it go. They don't know because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
Right.
They want to help. But I think it's just when we look back, and then alternately, the life lesson for me, Debbie, has been, I also don't know what they're going through because I haven't been on the beach they're walking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we give each other a lot of love in all of it. That's what it has to be.
Love and grace, for sure. For sure. Something I was going to ask. I'm having a lot of senior moments doing these things. It's like I'll have a thought and then it's like, oh, it's gone. How about, is there any other tangible things that you can think of that you recommend people to do? Like tangible steps or things that they can do to help themselves or their kids?
I think just first of all, communicating, being present. I mean, the best gift I believe you can give in a time of grief is your presence versus a present. I mean, quality time is important. There Grieving and loss brings a renewed sense of the importance of family and relationships for many people. Shortly after people suffer loss, you'll usually see them post a post that says, take the pictures, do the things, spend the time with each other because time is short. We have a new awareness of that. And, ironically, we're hurting, so we don't want to do those things, but let people take your picture, even if you're grieving, even if you have bags under your eyes. Remember, the only day guaranteed was yesterday for all of us. None of us know. So if your family member wants to snap a picture at Christmas and you're wearing your grumpy pants because you're sad, it's okay to let them take a picture.
Mhm.
I feel this because I've had people die in the wrong order, so to speak. Young people before older people and well people before sick people. That's the mystery of life as we know it. We don't know. Those are
Right.
only day we know guaranteed is yesterday. And then the only other tangible thing is that be really careful not to soothe incorrectly. Some people can soothe with food, alcohol, drugs, shopping, relationships, unhealthy relationships when they're grieving. And you don't want to end up an addict or pregnant or in debt. Those are all things that are tangible in our behaviors on how we cope. It's just important that we make smart decisions with what we do with our distracted behavior as we try to cope.
That's a great point. Something that just came to mind. I know that you're in the your job deals with financial planning and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
I know that you've probably, as you know, women, or it could be a man too, but a lot of losses also lead to other losses, such as loss of income or loss
Yeah.
of a change. It can cause a cascade of events and changes.
Mm.
What would you say to, say, a woman that's lost her husband and now she's in a financial position that's very difficult? Can you speak to that?
Well, just generally, yes, I can. In general, talk to a trusted advisor, a counsel, somebody who can help you make some practical decisions. I mean, even though I work in that industry, and Debbie, I will share quite humbly, I was prideful and I did not go get trusted counsel. And I made some decisions regarding a rental home that I made a poor decision. I thought I knew the best. And at the time, I was just panicking. And so I made a decision that was not in my best interest. Now, if I had reached out to a trusted family member or counsel, even if it's just a business person in your church or family member who understands maybe about money or law, but if you don't have that, there are financial advisors you can meet with consultatively. There are organizations that will help you. I know Modern Widows Club has something if you're a widow or widower. They have a lot of great resources on their website for advocacy, fiscal advocacy for widows. And sometimes you do have to make fast decisions. I mean, the old saying of don't making a big decision in 6 months doesn't really work if you're losing the house. You got to make a big decision. And so getting wise counsel is important. A pastor, a trusted person at the bank, an estate planning person, or a friend that you know is not going to be a gossip. I mean, this is important. We want our business to stay private,
Right.
but it is important. It's important to stand with the strong because I don't know about you, but my brain is standing room only. And during grief, it was really crowded up there.
Mhm.
And I should have gotten wiser counsel than my own brain.
Mhm. That's a good point. Thank you. Um, what else type of things do you teach in your grief for the holidays? Anything else that you can think of that
Mm.
you think might get someone through this period of time?
Well, I think if you were a church goer before loss, go back. If you can't go back to the same church because it has too many memories where you sat, who you sat with, go visit a different one. Be in God's house if you can, if that's a part of what you've done. nice thing nowadays, also, we have so many online church opportunities where you can still worship collectively and safely in an online community. But go. That is a thing where sometimes our nature is to huddle down, like I said, stay in the bed on Sundays. Um, a big part of healing is resuming those activities. And sometimes people will go back to the same church they joined or they went to with their spouse or their family. But it's difficult if for those people who lost a child and you go back to the church where your child was in children's ministry, it's almost overwhelming. And so many of those families I've learned have gone to new churches just because they didn't feel like there was so much in the visibility. And that's okay. Talk to pastors about it if you're feeling uncomfortable, but going back to church is a big thing. And then just like we said at the very beginning, taking it one day at a time and opting out of the part that's too painful.
Right.
It's just a day on the calendar. Every day is a day that we celebrate our life, and every day is a day that we celebrate the birth of the Savior.
Right.
And if we just get through the memories and leaning on one another, God gives us friends as helpmates. He says iron sharpens iron. I can't emphasize enough the importance of finding a strong friend or two or three or five.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Could you tell a little bit what GriefShare is, and
Sure.
just for anyone that doesn't know, are they still doing those on Zoom calls and online? Because I know not
Yeah.
everybody's open because of COVID still.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think the online classes will ever go away because they've been very well received. It's such great technology. But GriefShare is nationwide. I think it's probably international, offered through thousands of churches. It is a Christian-based curriculum, and churches offer it. It's the same curriculum at every church. It's a book that has 13 weeks. There's a video and there's a talk time. Not led by counselors or therapists, but led by, I mean, they may coincidentally be that, but I'm a volunteer and I facilitate it, which means I use their lesson plan and their questions. And it's 3 parts. It's the video, the discussion time, and the workbook. And so that part is personal. The workbook is self-paced. People have really received it well. I have a lot of people in my church who've taken it 2 or 3 times because, in year 1, they're here, in year 2, they're here, year 3, they're over here. But they have taken it repeatedly. So the 13-week class is offered all over the United States. And if you go to griefshare.org, there's a little box that says find a group near me. You put in your zip code and you'll find if there's a live church offering it in person. And then you can actually go to an online group anywhere in the world because you just are going to be on their Zoom. And the videos are available online that way. I watched them in 2020 at home, and then we got on the Zoom to talk about them. And it's really helpful, Debbie. Some of my closest grief friends are people that I met through GriefShare, and I met my husband on a Zoom call. I wouldn't use it to advertise for that. There's no dating allowed in GriefShare. We technically met on the Surviving the Holidays class. And then we went to see Christmas lights after that. And then I suggested that he take the rest of the class as we were progressing in our friendship. And it was good. But GriefShare, I mean, there's a lot of other grief programs as well. Obviously, a lot of hospices will offer grief programs. A lot of funeral homes will do it. The churches do their own. I like GriefShare because it's consistent. And there's also a free daily email of encouragement on their website. If you go to griefshare.org, you can sign up for the daily email of encouragement, and it comes for 365 days. And if that's all you can do, that is a wonderful thing to do. It's just a great way to get started with a daily nugget.
That's awesome. Is it only deal with grief from like loss, or is it grief from, because we know grief can be caused by lots of different things. Is it only
Yeah.
cause grief from related to death, or how does that work?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good question because people get confused about it. GriefShare is designed for loss from death. and not estrangement, not other types of losses, not pets. There are other curriculums for that. Divorce care is one, also by the same company.
Right.
But those are real losses. And you and I have talked about, I mean, there's a lot of people in the world that are hurting with grief from estrangement, and it's very real and very painful. And I hope that you have a whole nother session on that, because I look forward to what you can teach.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do that because I know that seems like there's just so many more people that are dealing with that than I can ever remember. So I want to
Yeah.
cover that for sure. Well, Lesa, I want to just ask in this little bit of time left, if I just turn it over to you and just let you say whatever you feel led to say that might encourage others.
You're not alone. I think that's the biggest thing. Loss can literally suck the life out of you. And when you love big, you lose big. And my only promise was waking up and saying, okay, I'm here, Lord. What are you going to do with me today? And loss has taught me to see, instead of 8 colors, I see 1,000 colors. I mean, loss taught me the meaning of life. Isn't it interesting that in loss, I've discovered the vibrancy? A lot of things I took for granted, I don't take for granted now. I feel actually more alive now. And I think that's where God wastes nothing, where we're taught. I've gone, many days through loss, and I just do believe the best is yet to come. And when people say that, I just say, wait for it. Just wait for it. It's not what we had planned, but the Lord brings a new sunrise every day. Lean into Him, lean in and lean on is what I have to say. Tuck in under Jesus's wing, and He'll get you through it.
He does. Amen. Well, thank you so much for giving your time. I really appreciate it. And I know that you're going to help a lot of people by doing this. And I know you have a heart like mine. We want to use what we've been through to help others and to comfort them. And maybe we're further down the road in some ways than other people. And we're kind of like cheerleaders, just saying, you can do this. You've got this.
Yes.
God's got us. And with His help, we can get through anything, no matter what we face. So I love you. Thank you.
I love you too. Thank you too.
Okay.
You big hug. That's a hug.
Okay, big hug back. All right. Thank you, Lesa.
Thank you, everyone.